The Battle Royale mode for Battlefield 6 has finally released, and with that being said, there are a lot of players still struggling to get their first win, and some are struggling to get far at all in any match they play. In this video, I'll be giving you guys 5 tips on how to get better at the Battlefield Battle Royale, and also aiming to get you guys your very first win as well. Comment down below and let me know your thoughts on the new addition to the series, and let's jump right into it. The very first tip I want to discuss with you guys today is the best loot path for early and mid game, with that being the missions. I see a lot of players avoiding doing missions, likely because there is a considerable amount of risk involved with doing these, but I can't stress it enough to everyone that this is the best way to set yourself up for success every match. I do a mission every time I clear my spawn area because these reward you advanced weapons, ammo, shields, and depending on the ones that you do get, you get rewarded with airstrikes and artillery strikes. The further along in the match you get, these missions will be shut off, so you won't be able to do these after a certain point, which works out well anyway because I highly recommend avoiding these missions after you load yourself up from doing them, because it does add even more risk past that point, and once the circles close and you're around other players, they'll be able to see you doing these much more easily. Missions are also how you find vehicle keycards, and I was very surprised to see and hear that players were still struggling to find this out, and while you can steal other players' vehicles, it's typically much easier to just get your own keycard by doing these missions. The second most important tip to Redsec is building custom weapons that are based around this mode and making sure you favorite them in your class setups. I make a lot of weapon builds on my channel, but those are primarily based around the multiplayer mode for Battlefield 6. A lot of the weapon builds that I'm using for my custom drops in Battle Royale are assault rifles or carbines that have high power at mid-range and long range. You don't have to follow my method, especially if you prefer to play Recon or SMG in Battle Royale, but the main point here is to have a weapon you're comfortable with and that you can consistently use each match. The third tip I have for you guys is to adjust your shot placement. In Redsec, it's much easier to down other players if your shots are around the upper body and head area. Since there's armor plates in this mode, I found that it's much more advantageous to go for headshots. This does matter in multiplayer too, but you will lose a lot more battles in Redsec if you don't do this yourself. If you constantly find yourself getting melted and not really doing any damage to enemies, this will fix that. The fourth tip I want to discuss with you guys is more strategy based and not necessarily a game aspect, but it's going to be making sure you guys save your artillery strikes, airstrikes, and UAVs for the final part of your match in the end game. My friends and I have all found it to be very useful for a few different reasons. The biggest one being, most of the time you're able to force the other players out of where they're hiding, and that exposes their cover and makes it easier for you to melt their health. You can also use a thermal to view where other players are, which can be pretty broken at times, but saving your strikes for the end match really gives you the upper hand over the other teams when you time it right. And once again, you can get these pretty consistently from the missions, and I highly recommend you give them a shot if you haven't already. The fifth tip I'm going to discuss is movement based around the map. A lot of players will use four-wheelers and other vehicles to maneuver, and I'll be honest with you guys, there are a lot of moments in any match of Redsec where a vehicle is just not a good idea. There are a lot of anti-tank weapons, gadgets, and mines that can be used on you when you're in a vehicle, and you make yourself a big target by using vehicles too frequently. This is why most of the time when I'm playing, I avoid vehicles completely. It's much better for me to be able to not be seen as easily, and for me to keep track of other players. I don't want to get hit with an RPG while riding a four-wheeler, and believe it or not, that has happened to me quite frequently. If this video helped you out, comment down below and let me know in the comments what your opinion on Redsec is so far. Leave a like and sub for more Battlefield 6 tips and tricks content, and I'll see you guys in the next one.